Cooper got open and caught it. Touchdown, Indiana.
Going up the middle is Omar Cooper, and he'll walk into the end zone.
Complete at the 47. Surratt with no one to beat. Graham, do you know why today's a great day?
Why is that?
Because it's Crimson Kickoff Day. We get to talk about some Indiana football. Galen Clavio is happy. Hello, everybody, and welcome into Crimson Kickoff. I'm Joe Cronin. Thomas Crow, Graham Nash, usual crew, talking all things Indiana football. Those Hoosiers just continue to make headlines, whether it's statewide, nationally. It's all over the place. All you can talk about is IU football right now. They're 13-0. They just won the Big Ten championship 2 weekends ago. Their first outright Big Ten championship since 1945. My dear Nana was 10 years old at the time, so she got to witness both, or I don't know if she watched it in 45, but I might have to ask her when I go home for break. Anyways, welcome in. The Hoosiers are rolling, and most recently, Fernando Mendoza. He's taking home the most coveted award in all of college football, and probably one of the best individual awards in all of sports. The Heisman Trophy is Fernando Mendoza's to keep. And Graham, honestly, not many people more deserving this season than Fernando Mendoza. First Hoosier to ever win the award.
I totally agree. And so did the voters, right? It was the largest margin of victory since 2014. He just blew everyone away, blew away the rest of the competition. And again, well-deserved. It's interesting. I think back to a couple weeks ago, probably more than a couple weeks ago now. It was a while ago when we had this conversation, but early on in the season, Mendoza hadn't played a lot of fourth quarters, and we wondered if that was really going to hurt his chances when it came to the Heisman Trophy. Clearly not. Clearly it didn't. And when he got those chances in the fourth quarter, he didn't just execute. He really shined in those fourth quarters. So very, very well-deserved, statistics-wise, but also accomplishments-wise this season.
There was a ton of news over the week. Obviously, Mendoza really takes the cake, standing alone on top of the CFB mountain that he is as an individual player. But there's some big news within the IU coaching staff this weekend as well, Thomas. Bryant Hayes, a $3 million extension. And get this, in 2016, Kevin Wilson, the old head coach here at IU, got a $2.6 million extension. You're seeing the investment that's being made to IU football from an administrative side. And Bryant Hayes, I mean, we've talked about him all season long. He is a wizard on that defense.
Yeah, Bryant Haynes undoubtedly, guys, will be a head coach in another program someday. But luckily for Hoosier fans, he's going to be in Bloomington for a little while longer. And it just shows, like you said, Joe, the commitment to the football program that President Pam Winton, Athletic Director Scott Dolson, and the entire IU community has to improving this football program. Just earlier today, an email was sent out to fans about potential renovations, some ideas about what to do with Memorial Stadium. It just shows that IU football was dormant for so long, but when the volcano starts to erupt, you got to keep it going.
You got to keep that fire lit when it starts to erupt like that, kind of like what you're saying. Going back to the Heisman, though, I mean, his offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan, went out to New York this week, and congratulations to Shanahan. He got engaged as well this week, and so congratulations to the Shanahan family. But Graham, let's take a play-by-play look of Fernando Mendoza's Heisman season, right?
Yeah, we've got to. Some of his best plays of the season, it was dot after dot. That connection was working really well early on this season. Of course, Elijah Surratt went down with an injury, so Fernando Mendoza had to look to other receivers like E.J. Williams Jr., like Omar Cooper Jr., Charlie Becker. Thomas, all the tools were at his disposal this season.
Yeah, it was the tight ends getting involved too. This was the best throw of the season in the route of Illinois. Just week 4, when everyone didn't know what Indiana was, this one was a good telltale sign of what it would be. Then the drive that I guess continued the magical season. It was Cooper, it was Nowakowski, and then Graham. These two catches, 2 of the biggest in college football this season.
Yeah, we thought this throw to Charlie Becker, I thought that catch would be the best of the season. But then Omar Cooper Jr. had to one-up it on this throw. In case you haven't seen it, this has been the news in Bloomington for a very long time. I still don't know how he came down with that football, how he got that toe in. Unbelievable stuff. But it was even just throws like these, when Indiana was up by a decent margin, right in stride to Omar Cooper Jr., it felt like that was the entire season.
Yeah, just routine throws like that. We covered that one in film. It was just simple zone coverage. He was able to just find the easy play. Same one here. Get it out of the pocket. Find EJ down the field. Graham, going into this college football playoff, you got to call Indiana football butter because they're on a roll.
I like it. They sure are. And then even in the Big Ten championship, it didn't stop. Fernando Mendoza to begin the second half, an absolute dot to Charlie Becker. And then later on this drive, the big score for the Hoosiers, getting them ahead, a lead that IU would hold on to. An amazing snag from Elijah Surratt. We're going to talk about that play a little bit later on. And then, of course, it was the roommate to close things out in the Big Ten championship. Charlie Becker going up and getting it to ice the game on 3rd and 6. And just like that, Fernando Mendoza is your Heisman Award winner.
33 passing touchdowns on the year is the all-time single-season record in IU program history and counting. He still has games to play as those Hoosiers are the top overall seed in the college football playoffs. He also leads the nation in passing touchdowns. Thomas, it was a landslide in voting for Mendoza to win. He kind of dominated 643 first-place votes, beat Diego Pavia, the runner-up, by over 900 total points. And it showed from his performance on the field where, yes, maybe the stats weren't crazy in years past for the Heisman winner, but the moments Mendoza had all season long was much deserving.
Cooler than the other side of the pillow when pressure gets heavy on the field. He was the life and soul of this Indiana offense all season. But Joe, you were there. Our producer Emily was there in New York this weekend, and that just showed what a great person Fernando Mendoza is. He's genuine, he's authentic, and we've all noted in Bloomington all season, but up until his interview for the Big Ten title and then his Heisman Trophy speech and all the stuff he did this weekend shows how kind-hearted and awesome of a person Fernando Mendoza and the whole Mendoza family are.
His speech was awesome. He spoke in Spanish just so his grandparents could have kind of that connection to him with their Cuban background. The amount of times that he shouted out his mom, who has dealt with MS for over a decade, he's the number one supporter for that cause, for the MS Society. But Graham, this is a guy that took time at a press conference to shout out a thing that Jeremiah Love, Julian Sain, and Diego Pavia individually that he had learned from him. It just shows the character that he has, that he's so selfless. I mean, he did it all season long. He's always the one that says this is a team award when he's winning the Heisman Trophy, but to do it to guys that he doesn't even play with, it holds its weight.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think about is how week 5, when the first media member mentioned the Heisman Award, just without even thinking, Fernando mentioned this is a team award. Sure, I'm the one handed the trophy. I'm the one picking it up. But it's a team award. And I saw that a lot in all the social media clips and everything that went viral over the weekend. I remember think of a clip when Fernando first was walking to I think it was the press conference room. You'd have to tell me. But his teammates were doing the hands and he was walking through it. He sees his captain. He sees Aiden Fisher and he just goes to hand it to him like instinctively. It was just what he wasn't even thinking about it. He just went to hand it to his captain. And Aiden Fisher was like, that's yours, dude. Like, keep that. You won that. But it's an instinct. Fernando Mendoza, he's really shown that he's a team player through and through. And that's been clear from the early weeks of the season when someone asked him about the award and he said immediately it's a team award.
I mean, he had to deal with nearly 48 straight hours of media, touring NYC, running around doing photo shoots, and he handled it like a true professional. And I feel like that's kind of what he's done all season long. And it's a reason why, Thomas, this Indiana team is the number 1 overall team in the college football playoffs. Much deserved. Those Big Ten champions, the lone team in FBS that is undefeated. Look at that bracket right there of the matchups in the first round. Obviously, you got the Indiana playing the winner of Alabama and Oklahoma out in Norman. But which matchup stands out to you in the first round?
I mean, looking at the first round, it has to be Miami, Texas A&M. Guys, I think Texas A&M, we'll talk about this towards the end of the show when we talk about the CFP a little more in depth, but Texas A&M is a team that just a couple weeks ago was undefeated, and now they're kind of just tucked in there at that 7 seed. Miami, same deal. They kind of snuck in. We'll talk about that too with Notre Dame, but this is a team that had some really quality wins at the beginning of the season. That's the one to me that is just an awesome first-round match.
And Graham, there's 2 group of 5 teams, and I've been following along with it. It's a James Madison X account, and they are hilarious. They're just kind of poking fun at Oregon simply for the love of the game. They're just happy to be there. This account is just kind of basically making fun of Oregon just to try and get some engagement. It's been so fun to watch. Is it weird having 2 group of 5 teams in? I know there's a little bit of, you could say controversy with how the committee made their decisions.
Yeah, it's definitely odd, but what I think about is that the committee laid out clearly at the beginning of the season how things were going to work when it came to the playoff. 4 highest-ranked conference champions, and then a group of 5 team. Well, it just so happened that the ACC champion had a couple losses before winning that ACC championship. So I think in terms of the foundation that the committee laid out beginning of the season, they did a pretty good job following what they said they would. They also said that the conference championship wouldn't affect the team if it was a big loss. Think about Alabama. Got blown out by Georgia. They're still the number 9 seed where they were ranked that last week before the conference championships. But the question becomes, are the 12 best teams in the college football playoff? That, I think, is a totally different argument. But if you think about what the committee laid out at the beginning of the season, I think they did a good job of following what they said they would do.
It seemed like they honored some of their word with that head-to-head matchup. It's kind of crazy that the playoffs are counting down. This Friday, Alabama goes out to Norman to take on Oklahoma, a rematch of a pretty electric regular season game. 2 head coaches that have some playoff experience. We'll touch on that more later in the show. But before that, we're doing a full dive on the Big Ten Championship. Yes, it was 2 weekends ago, but I mean, it was the game of the year. It was the 1 versus the 2. And before that, I was out in New York City with our producer, Emily Fox. And there was a very cool story. It was actually the day of the Heisman, the morning, out at the Adidas store in New York City. Fernando Mendoza partnered with Adidas as well as the MS Society. And I did a piece on a touching moment that Fernando gave back to the community on. It's officially Heisman Day, and Fernando Mendoza started his day with an Adidas and MS Society collaboration. 4 families, $10,000 spending spree here at the Adidas store in New York City. They got their own custom shoes. Fernando Mendoza giving back to the community. Allison Hitchcock, one of the invitees to the event, was diagnosed with MS when she was just 14. The St. John Fisher University student works at a children's hospital and has decided to gift her Adidas spendings to the children.
It's incredible. I think that the biggest thing that it really shows is how the MS diagnosis really brings people together. I think that it was just, you got this huge opportunity, it's a bunch of money, right? And, well, it's the season of giving. So I thought it was a little funny to purchase for myself. So I'm really excited to take this opportunity and purchase for the kids.
As Fernando bounced around the store, greeting families, taking pictures, and signing merchandise, a handful of his Hoosier teammates showed up at the store to show support not just for Fernando's Heisman campaign, but an event that's near and dear to Mendoza.
We're all just super excited for him, proud of him, happy for him and his family. Super exciting day, and we're just happy to be a part of it. It's a very small part of it, but we're just excited for him.
It's incredible. He's such a special talent and such a special person. It's never about him. But hopefully this weekend he can realize, this is all about him. He's worked so hard for this. He deserves every single bit of it, and we're all just really proud of him. So I hope he takes some time to, kind of enjoy this moment for a minute.
Through the busy morning, Fernando still has a jam-packed day as he awaits the Heisman ceremony that begins at 7 p.m. Reporting from New York City, Joe Cronin for IUS TV Sports. A cause that is very personal to Fernando Mendoza was meant with great reasons. That was very fun being able to be a part of that whole organization, the whole event that took place. That was this past Saturday morning. And now let's reflect to 2 weekends ago, the Big Ten Championship. And what we're going to do, a little bit different style than what we've been treating other shows, a hole by hole. We're talking the front 9 for this block, the first half of Indiana versus Ohio State. And Graham, man, this lived up to the potential. Just first initial thoughts before we start diving into some specific plays. The 1 versus the 2, heavyweight battle, but it was all defense.
Yeah, it really was all defense. It was kind of wild. We all in our predictions the week before the Big Ten Big Ten championship game, we thought that it would all be a bit of a defensive game based on our score predictions, but I don't think we expected this. It was a bit of a slow start for both quarterbacks. Both threw an interception early. We'll get to that in a second, but man, it was surprising. I really thought that beginning of the second quarter, we'd see a big outbreak, and we did from Ohio State, didn't really from Indiana. It was just kind of a roller coaster ride the entire time offensively. The line of scrimmage really dictated the play and the pace of the game, and it was really interesting to watch as Indiana had a slow start rushing-wise, and then Ohio State really couldn't get anything going after a quicker start running the ball. It was a really interesting game to watch.
Lucas Oil Stadium was an awesome place to be at 2 weeks ago. It was rowdy. Honestly, for both teams, it was really loud. Let's get to the action, though. Thomas, very first play from scrimmage. Fernando Mendoza rolls out, completes a 9-yard completion to Elijah Stratton. Boom! You saw it right there. Caden Curry just obliterates him, makes his name heard and felt on the very first play. 9 seconds into the game, Thomas.
Yeah, it goes silent in the stadium. Everyone's wondering who hid the hat. Caden Curry popped Fernando Mendoza. Caden Curry was gigantic the entire game. Had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. He was the best player on the floor pretty often in that game. And then Omar Cooper also got injured just a couple plays later.
We'll definitely talk about that. Alberto Mendoza, though, here it is, the play that Cooper got injured. You see Mendoza airing it out, had Cooper kind of underthrew him, got caught up, Graham. This is a player that Omar, when Elijah Surratt was with him, he was balling. One of the best receivers on this team. Obviously, we saw the Penn State catch that he made, the toe tap of perfection. Him going down is pretty detrimental because who's going to step up?
Charlie Becker, right? Charlie Becker. I mean, I hate to ruin the foreshadowing, but Charlie Becker was the guy that really met the moment. And yes, you never want to see a player go down, no matter the circumstance. Injury is the worst part of the sport. But I think the positive for Indiana in that situation is that since Surratt had been out for so long, guys like Becker really had a chance to get into his own, get into form leading up to this game. So it seemed like he kind of came in pretty seamlessly into the motion, into the gameplay, and made some big catches. We saw E.J. Williams Jr. get a couple big snaps as well. So Omar Cooper Jr., absolutely a huge piece to this offensive puzzle. But because of the Elijah Surratt injury for the weeks leading up to it, I felt like the team was actually in a decent spot to meet the adversity, to handle it and be like, okay, we've dealt with this for the past couple of weeks. It's a different guy now. It's not Surratt, it's Cooper, but they still had a guy step up regardless.
Yeah, Thomas, in the span of the first 6 plays, it seems like Indiana had their fair share of heart attacks. I mean, going back to Mendoza just getting popped right there, it was silent. You mentioned it. Alberto Mendoza comes in for one singular play, hands it off to Roman Hemby, who gets a first down. And you remember it, the roar when Fernando checks back in.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. One, to see Alberto come out there, got 2 or 3 passes in on the sidelines, and then came out. The younger brother, right? What a storybook moment that could have been. But instead, you get the storybook moment just a play later. Fernando comes back in to as loud of a cheer as we heard all night. Everyone in the stadium, except for some Ohio State fans, I guess, was happy to see Fernando come back into the game and then leads them onto that field goal drive.
I mean, you have to imagine there's some that immediately think worst case scenario. Mendoza's down. He's down for 30, 40 seconds. It's, man, you lose this game. Now you're not getting a bye. Now you're, hosting a playoff game just 2 weeks later. So that was, Graham, just a crazy moment just to start the game 9 seconds in as well.
Yeah, and something that you said when it happened, Thomas, that really kind of stuck with me is Caden Curry just made himself present. Like, in the back of Fernando's mind for the rest of the game, you're watching Caden Curry. He landed a couple more that were like, whoa, he hit hard. So even though Fernando came back in and the roar that created, it still seemed throughout the game like, he was watching Caden Curry, because that guy just popped him. It was a big hit.
He ended the day with 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and of course the legendary QB hit that you saw in that very first play. Let's move on a little bit though. Ohio State got the ball after the incomplete pass on that deep ball to Omar Cooper where he got hurt. And it looked like, first play, they get a first down to Jeremiah Smith, and then Thomas disaster struck. But not disaster. It was just a brilliant defensive scheme, and Lewis Moore made the play.
Yeah, the mastermind, Bryant Haynes. There's no wonder he got paid the $3 million. Guys, for me, doing as many film rooms as I did this year, the one thing that stuck out to me that caused so much defense for opposing quarterbacks was simulated pressure. And on that play, what Indiana did was they showed 6, dropped 2 of those 6, only got 4. Mikhail Kamara was able to be one of those guys to drop kind of an old linebacker spot. It became a mix between a Tampa 2 and a cover 3 defense, which allowed Lewis Moore to be looking in front of the play, dropping kind of into a cover 3. What Brandon Inniss does is goes about 2 yards further than where Julian Sayin thought he would. Moore is able to break on that route before Inniss really gets there and just undercuts it, and guys almost scores.
I mean, the play he made, one to break up the pass and then being able to track it on that tip in the air. Graham, Lewis Moore, everything he had to deal with leading into the season, even for the first 5 to 6 weeks, what a year he's having and making plays at the biggest moments of his life.
Yeah, seriously. His 6th interception of the season. This guy has been unbelievable for Indiana. Really a rock because, we've talked about it. The secondary has absolutely faced some issues this season. A lot of blown plays. Think about that Illinois touchdown early in the season, early weeks. But Lewis Moore was always kind of truly a rock in that secondary. He always provided big plays, had a bunch of interceptions. And I feel like that was a moment where there was a quick energy lift in the stadium because, Indiana got a couple first downs, but had to punt on that first play of the drive or first drive of the game. And then Fernando Mendoza, of course, goes down. There's still some doubt in the minds of, I think, many that, okay, this is the biggest test Indiana has faced. Right. How are they going to do against a #1 team in the country? Ohio State hadn't lost a game since Michigan last year. To come out and get that pick, that was a big moment of, hey, this team's here to play, and they can play. They can hang with this team.
And on top of that, same one, the guy who had turned the ball over, I think maybe 5 interceptions going into that game. Yeah. Not a guy who turns it over. If you can get an interception early in the game in plus territory, no better way to jump up the energy.
I mean, I think a big thing after the pick, too, that I want to touch on, Indiana gets a pick, and like you said, I mean, offensive line made a game or touchdown-saving tackle on Lewis Moore. You're set up shop just outside the red zone. It seemed like Indiana really settled there. Had to take a field goal, got a first down on their first play of that drive, and then really couldn't move the ball much after that, and settled for the field goal. And that's a moment right there where you get a pick, you're in plus territory, you need a touchdown.
Yeah, you do. At that moment, I think we all looked at each other and had the same thought of, Michigan, the game. It had the same vibe as that Michigan game where Michigan got into the red zone time after time again, but had to settle for a field goal every single time. Indiana got the ball at Ohio State's 23-yard line after that interception from Lewis Moore and had to settle for a field goal. And we all had the same thought of, you cannot beat the #1 team in the nation. You cannot beat this Buckeyes team settling for field goals. Michigan just proved that a couple weeks ago. So it was a moment of, okay, early in the game, obviously, only the second time Indiana had the ball, but how would they respond? Because field goals weren't going to cut it.
And especially the way that Julian Sain played in the game after he threw that pick, it was like, okay, he knows kind of how to respond a little bit. But this was really defenses flexing their muscles. That's what the story of this game was. And I think Ohio State really locked up once they realized, okay, offense makes a mistake, we'll hold them to 3. And they did just that. And then the Ohio State defense, again, on the Indiana's third drive of the game, Lorenzo Styles Jr., man, he blew up a design screen to Elijah Surratt. We'll kind of go through that, but Thomas, what a play by Styles Jr. It was Igbenison who ended up getting the pick, but Styles made the play.
Yeah, it was a quick way for Ohio State to kind of curb Indiana's enthusiasm. Just an awesome play by Styles, but it was Nowakowski and kind of Fernando not being on the same page. I think Fernando snapped the ball just about a quarter or a half second too early. Nowakowski was the motion man whose job was supposed to get to Styles, hit him so the receiver could come forward and then get going on the screen. Nowakowski just didn't have enough time to get there. Like you said, Styles blows it up, and then heads up play by Igbenison to be able to pick it off the tip of Nowakowski's shoulder.
And there were some boos in the stadium from the Indiana faithful because, yes, Surratt got blown up before the ball got there, but Graham, you can hit someone if they're behind the line of scrimmage before the ball gets there. And that's just a heads-up play by Styles.
Yeah, exactly. Styles just read it perfectly, saw Fernando turn quickly, and Surratt lock and get ready to receive that football, and he just went for it. He went for it. Surratt, sometimes you'll see the wide receiver go a little bit and then turn around so that they get in front of the line of scrimmage, and then the corner can't hit him. But Surratt didn't do that. He just turned, waited for the football. That allows Styles to go right through the line of scrimmage, blow up Elijah Surratt, and then just one of those bounces where it's like, how did that just happen?
Now setting up shop in plus territory were the Ohio State Buckeyes. And all it took them was 5 plays. Thomas, the touchdown that Julian Sain had, the pocket press and stepping up, rolling out, and booty butt naked was Carnell Tate for the first touchdown of the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, he was wide open. There was a huge gap on the left side of the line of scrimmage. You can watch here. Look at Sain, think about stepping forward. Then he steps out, and when there's this much time on a scramble drill zone coverage in the end zone, there's just no chance that it's going to happen. Tate was wide open. That's awesome pocket presence from Sain. That much wide of an area on the left side. And you saw him think about it and then realize, nope, there's still a lot of clean pocket here to get outside, and then the zone coverage. And man, you might have a chance in the back of the end zone like that. Zone, when your eyes aren't really following someone, scramble drill, not a chance.
And I know we've talked so much of the defenses, but man, it took 14 minutes and 7 seconds for the first touchdown to be scored, Graham. Felt like it was just, waning moments right there. And again, scoring after the pick, it was something that Ohio State was like, okay, we're here. We are the #1 team in that moment.
Yeah, it was a big, exactly, we are here moment where they kind of announced their presence. And it was always going to happen on one of those plays because the Indiana defense was doing a really, really good job of shutting down those receivers. And then the second that you got that scramble drill, that I feel like is when the secondary has had some issues this season for Indiana. And it led to a touchdown. Tate was wide open. But the response from Sayan after the interception, that was really a big thing. I was curious how both of those guys, Mendoza and Sayan, would respond. Sayan got the touchdown, which is interesting. Fernando didn't, but both of them, they had identical responses after the interceptions. Both of them completed 6 of their next 7 passes, and they were kind of locked in on the same wavelength, but it was just Sayan who had that opportunity, really good starting field position to get that touchdown. Obviously, we talked about it. Mendoza and his first chance before the interception, they got stopped in the red zone.
Now, the Indiana defense, yes, it was only a 25-yard touchdown drive for the Buckeyes. They got punched, and now the offense needed to punch back. And it looked like they were on their way to doing that. Kalen Black broke a 37-yard scamper that Caleb Downs just hawked. And I'm, wow, Caleb Downs, just otherworldly safety. He is probably – Jeremiah Smith is on the field, and Caleb Downs might have been the best player on the field in that game. A great drive from the Hoosiers. They were marching, and again, settle for a field goal. 39-yard attempt, and the first miss of the season for Nico Radicic. And that one really kind of to feel like a moment just ripped away from Indiana. You could just see it just missing left Thomas, but that's a moment right there where, yes, you're still trailing, but you need the points when they're there.
Yeah, I mean, that got set up because Fernando Mendoza took way too long in that third down play, held the ball, tried to get escape, tried to do too much, gets sacked, becomes a little bit, just a touch more than a chip shot field goal. And then Nico, just kind of a conservative hit. Graham, I equate it to like a 5-foot putt where you just don't really have a confident stroke. You don't love the line or something about it. You just don't confidently hit it. That kind of felt like Nico's kick where he just wanted to barely get it inside the upright and it just never had a chance to get through.
I've had plenty of those putts. That's exactly right. It's one of those scenarios. You're thinking about something a little too much and you pull it. It's just one of those situations. Biggest moment of the season. The nerves are going to be there every time.
We'll talk about more field goals throughout this show, and that's kind of how the first half ended. Both teams did end up trading field goals. The next possession for Ohio State opened up in a big way. Jeremiah Smith did break off that 52-yard reception, kind of beat D'Angelo Pons. We can talk about that matchup here later on as well. But Graham, Amari Farrell saved a touchdown and potentially a game if Jeremiah Smith goes and scores that.
Yeah, seriously, that was a huge play because Jeremiah Smith, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. Unbelievable athlete. We really talked about it in the preview. And it's one of those scenarios where when he gets in the open field, it's like you got to make a phenomenal play to bring that guy down. And that's exactly what Farrell did. It was one of those, wow, like that's a really impressive play because Smith just beat Pons off the line. It was one of those where he just had a quick first step, made a great move. Ball was on the money. How many times have we seen that this season from Sayan and Jeremiah Smith? But the recovery was really, really impressive. And Pons did a pretty good job of slowing him down so that Farrell could come over and make the tackle. But it was absolutely game-saving.
Shoestring tackle by Farrell. And the next drive for Indiana, they went on a long on 14 total plays. And again, just another field goal. They're trading these touchdowns for field goals in this setting, at least with about 2 minutes left. And the Hoosiers were marching, but then Ohio State got a TFL and a sack on back-to-back plays. It was 3rd and 15. And the Hoosiers settled for kind of the tight end screen. Your favorite play to Nowakowski, who took it up for a nice chunk of yards, which set up kind of an easy chip shot 32-yard field goal by Radicic. And that was the first half score, 10-6, Thomas. But that was a good answer for Indiana to at least not be trailing by 7 at the break.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about it pre-show. That was a huge possession. And then Ohio State kind of conservative in their final possession. They had the ball, 3 timeouts left, 2:47 to go in the half. And then they went run, sack, deep, incompletion. That all took about 1:25. And they put the ball to Indiana. Indiana didn't do anything with it, took it to the half. But that was a chance for Ohio State to go up multiple scores and get the ball at half. That could have been a huge possession if they did something with it. And a little conservative for my liking.
I mean, you don't want to take too many risks, especially with the way that the defenses were playing. I guess you really just break that 152-yard play. You can't bank on having moments like that. But it was interesting kind of leading that, and especially knowing that they got the ball in the second half, which was a big thing. Because if they could, kind of sit on it, go in the breakup 4, get it back, and they can kind of take that 2-possession lead, which they didn't. But we'll get into that, of course. Second half, or the turn, the back 9, coming your way after this quick break. Fernando Mendoza is officially immortalized in college football. For the first time ever, an Indiana Hoosier is taking home the Heisman Trophy. In New York City, welcome to Heisman Mendoza. The 2025 Hoosiers are filled with stellar, never-before-seen moments. And Saturday night, Mendoza etched another. The best player in college football resides now in Bloomington, and he is the proof to show it. And even with that proof, Mendoza struggles to process the feat he just accomplished.
I can't even feel my body right now. I can't feel my body right now. Like when I was up there at the speech, I started crying, and then I'm like, gotta collect yourself, and then I was like, well, I gotta show my emotions, and there's so many emotions, so much mix. It truly hasn't really hit me yet. It really hasn't hit me yet. I mean, no, I've never felt this way before in my life.
Mendoza's teammates expressed their love in a very loud way, celebrating, embracing their historic QB.
Dude, those are my boys right there. Those are my boys. This is a moment that I hope to share with them for the rest of my lives, my family, and everybody else that's out here in New York and even at home.
Even with the history, the Hoosiers are all business for the college football playoffs moving forward.
This party's over Tuesday.
Monday, yes sir. Monday.
But for tonight, it's a night of celebration, Hoosier history, and none more deserving than Fernando Mendoza. Reporting from New York City, I'm Joe Cronin for IUS TV Sports. From New York City to Merchants Bank Field here at Memorial Stadium, I traveled in a split second. No, I flew back yesterday. Don't worry about it. But second half, hole by hole, the back nine of the Big Ten Championship is coming your way. And Ohio State got the ball first. Just talked about it. They had the chance to go up 2 possessions, and they didn't, Thomas. And that was in part of that Indiana stout defensive line.
Yeah, Stephen Daly, Mario Landino. Landino gets to him on second down. Stephen Daly gets to him on third down. They had a decent drive up to that point, right about midfield. And, Sane just held it a little too long on both of those downs. And that was gigantic for Indiana to be down 10-6 at halftime. If you go down 17-6 or even 13-6, based on, knowing what the final score was, it would have been tough to get there.
Saw that 3rd and 29 really kind of head scratching right there, seeing what 30-yard play Ryan Day could cook up right there. But for the Stephen Daly sack, was it called early? Because, yes, he had him wrapped, but then Sane kind of broke free, but the ref blew the whistle. And obviously the rule is really leaning towards protecting the quarterback in this situation.
Right. When it happened live, I remember thinking, oh, he was clearly down or his movement was stopped. Watching the replay, I don't know, they showed it from a different angle. They didn't show it from that main camera. They showed it from a back one, and it looked like he kind of got out of it before his movement stopped. I think, though, it was the angle. I think his forward progress or backwards progress, whatever you want to call it, was stopped. I think that he was down.
It felt very Eli Manning Super Bowl-esque.
Yeah.
Where you
Which
could
one?
call it, well, the one where he got out of the sack, that could have been called a sack, then it turns into the helmet catch.
Yeah.
But this one felt very similar to that. Hindsight's 50, it's 2020, not 50-50. You could have called it, you could have not called it. Manning wins the Super Bowl because you don't call it. Indiana wins a Big Ten title, that is, because you do call it.
But, I mean, the thing is Julian Sane ended up just throwing the ball away, so it would have been a 3rd and 15 compared to 3rd and 29. Yes, that is a difference, but it's still really backed up and a difficult conversion to make. Anyways, Indiana gets the ball back and finally finds pay dirt. Not yet, though. A huge play was made. Not by Elijah Surratt. Not by Roman Hemby or Kalon Black, Thomas. It was your guy from Nashville, Tennessee, Charlie B.
Charlie B gets deep in the secondary, a 51-yard reception. And, man, I kind of feel bad for him in the sense that he just makes huge catches, and then someone else catches the touchdown and gets all the credit for it. Just like Penn State, Becker with the big catch, and then you said it, Joe. Graham, I'll throw it to you, Surratt, the tutty.
Yeah, well, first of all, it was this run that got him in better field position even. That push at the very end was impressive. The O-line was doing some phenomenal things in this game for Indiana. Roman Hemby had some trouble early on, but they really adjusted. And then, man, this was the throw. Just one-on-one, fade, Surratt goes up and makes the grab. That's just going up for a big rebound and grabbing it, just going over the defender.
That was a beautiful ball and a beautiful catch by Elijah Surratt. Thomas, I know you want to kind of break down the nitty-gritty of how that play came to fruition, But when Surratt is on, he is on. And yes, Jeremiah Smith is on the field, but there are not many better receivers in all the country than Elijah Surratt.
Yeah, Ohio State was lined up in pretty simple man and then cover 2. And what Indiana did was they stacked 3 at the bottom. The far side, or I guess the closest to the line slot, Jonathan Brady, he went on just a hitch route, but he sold it well enough that it might look like a go just to freeze the near side safety enough. And then Surratt, he was obviously in the secondary slot position. Nowakowski on the out. What Nowakowski did was a simple hitch as well to get that corner out of the play. And then because the safety had to freeze just a little bit on JB's hitch, Surratt was wide open. And then he had 3 inches and 20 pounds on Jermaine Matthews. It was just like you said, Graham, go up and let the big fella get the board.
That was all Big Ten guys battling right there. And the Jermaine Matthews third team and Surratt being a second team, all Big Ten guy. And, you know, second team is better than third team. So that's why Surratt makes that play right there. But Graham, that was the first time all season that Ohio State trailed in the second half from that Indiana possession right there. It just kind of showed the weight that Indiana had compared to the other opponents Ohio State has played.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it shows the response too, right? I mean, the middle 8 minutes are so important. Like the last 4 of the first half, first 4 of the second half, and Indiana won it, which is surprising because Ohio State had the last possession. They could have had the last possession of that first half and then got the ball out of the second. That really leans the favor of those middle 8 towards the Buckeyes. I give all the credit to the Indiana defense on that first drive. Yeah. Every time, or almost every time that Sand dropped back, Indiana got home in that first drive and really got Ohio State in bad field position. Then Fernando Mendoza, as he has done all season long, when faced with pressure, comes up with diamonds. I don't know how he keeps doing it, how he continues to find this, but it's typically been after an interception. Didn't happen in this game. It happened out of the break with Indiana trailing, and he just came up with 2 phenomenal throws.
It just really felt like Mendoza was one throw of taking the lid off from kind of really swaying that momentum. And I think the Becker catch was enough to tip it enough into Indiana. And once they got that, they were not settling for 3.
No, and it's incredible to me, guys, thinking about the fact that this was the final score of the game.
Yeah.
13-10. The second half didn't feature very many drives, but every single drive was long and calculated. And I mean, we'll talk about the 2 Ohio State drives that ended up scoreless, but it's just unreal to think back to that game and how quick everything felt and how much tension there was in that building. To think that with, I think, 11 minutes to go in the third quarter, something to that effect, this was the final score.
There was so much tension at Lucas Oil Stadium. And Ohio State put together some pretty awesome drives to try and claw their way back. They went on a 12-play drive that really marched them down to the Indiana 5. They had it 3rd and 1, and they opted to go to a pass to Jeremiah Smith that is incomplete. In the very next play, they line up all the big boys for the old tush push, the Philly special, whatever you want to call it. Julian Sayin on the sneak. And it looked, the first angle that we all get is Sayin clearly got it. The first down, and they're going to march in and score a touchdown. Indiana's going to have to respond. You go immediately to the replay, and you saw his knee dropped early. How? I don't know.
I still am not sure either. It was one of those plays where you just kind of watch the push, see how far that helmet gets, and clearly he did get far enough. That back knee just fell. It plummeted to the turf. And it's one of those scenarios where, yes, as a quarterback, you want to get low in the sneak and really get that positioning to push forward. But that knee is clearly down. He just fell to his feet. Don't know if it was a slip or just miscalculation, not really knowing where you are in correlation to the yards.
Yeah, to me, it looked to me like his line kind of got a weird push at the beginning, like he was anticipating really getting into him. It's like when you pull the chair in basketball almost, where you take two bumps at a guy and then they fall down, and then they move out of the way and you fall down with them. Kind of felt that way too, where he was expecting a lot of leverage with his lineman, and then when it wasn't there, it just kind of slips out from under him. He obviously, from our angle, looked like he got 4 or 5 yards. Eventually he did. Doesn't matter if your knee's down.
Man, they get that first down. It's really no doubt in my mind that Ohio State was going to punch in a touchdown. Huge moment swing, and now Indiana's backed up on their own 5. And when a game that was defensive battle, it was tough to move the ball. Indiana needed a drive, and they put together a good enough drive to kind of ease that tension, ease that pressure. 9 plays, 44 total yards, that nearly 6 minutes of clock. It didn't end up in a scoregram. They punted at midfield at their own 49, but that was pivotal. I mean, they're backed up.
Yeah, and that's as big of a drive, honestly, as you could have. It started with a 0-yard rush from Kalen Black. It was second down, and Fernando Mendoza, we just saw that ball, delivered one on the money. Again, not to Elijah Surratt, not to Omar Cooper Jr., to E.J. Williams Jr. Again, the other pieces getting really, really involved, and then Charlie Becker yet again making his presence known. It's one of those drives where it's just scrappy, and you got to come up with something somehow. It was an impressive drive, not a scoring drive, but one of the more important ones of the game.
And Thomas, we haven't really talked in depth at time, but Fernando Mendoza kind of had to improvise on that drive a lot in this game. You saw him there on the EJ reception, on the Charlie Becker for a first down. He's rolling out on the move, kind of throwing a little cross body, just the angles that he's throwing at. Those are pro-style throws.
Yeah, and what I didn't love, one of the few things I did not like about Coach Shanahan's game plan was there were a couple times he left Caden Curry unblocked. One of them was a 4th and 2 that
huge.
Indiana got. Nowakowski caught it, but they left Curry unblocked, and he hit Fernando pretty well. Same thing there on that second down where E.J. Williams caught it. Fernando got hit by Curry, who was unblocked in the end zone. If something's just a little off on that play, one of two things happens. Either Fernando gets sacked for safety or Fernando throws an interception. I mean, obviously the other thing happened, it was a completion, but that's just a risky play call, in my opinion, that close to your own end zone.
So Ohio State gets the ball with around 10 minutes and 45 seconds. And what's crazy is this is really their last true drive of the game. This was an expert drive. They just marched, and it was death by 1,000 punches, really, and kind of felt that way for the Indiana defense. Nearly 8 minutes eaten up. 15 total plays, 2 minutes, 51 seconds were remaining in the game, and a massive 3rd and 1 in the red zone led, again, a passing play was called by Hartline as Julian Sain rolls out, and Graham, Elijah Hardy might have made the defensive play of the game.
Yeah, I think he did. And just the whole drive it kind of felt like a fever dream. I don't know, because they started on their own 10-yard line, the Buckeyes, and then, like you said, slowly got down the field. And it felt like one of those drives where, okay, this is the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is the team that just bleeds clock, that uses all of their different tools. Bo Jackson got handed that ball so many times on that drive. Jeremiah Smith did his thing a couple of times, and they were using all the tools, and the Indiana defense, you could sense, was getting tired. They were getting tired, more tired as they go down, and then come up with a huge defensive play. And it's like, it comes down to, again, the message of this or the theme of this entire game, not the offense, just somehow coming up with magical defensive plays when it feels like all odds are against the defense.
Yeah, Joe, you called it the biggest defensive play of the game. I'll call it potentially the biggest defensive play of the season. Elijah Hardy started on the outside of Bennett Christian on that play, and I'm not sure if he was taking a run step or if he was anticipating a toss, what exactly it was, but he stepped towards the line of scrimmage, then realized Bennett Christian was going on a route. Hardy then was already almost step and a half behind, was able to follow him across the field, almost to the other side of the end zone. And now, granted, it wasn't a great throw from Sam, but for Elijah Hardy, guy who had a sack in this game, tackles for loss in this game, to chase a tight end like that, I'm saying best defensive play for the Hoosiers all season.
And Thomas, was it wrong to call passes on both the 3rd and 1s in
Yes.
those crucial moments?
100%.
Pretty easily saying yes.
100%. I think that, especially the second one, the first time, if you're trying to catch the Hoosiers off guard and you're throwing the ball to Jeremiah Smith, I get it. Smith is one of the guys, was a contender for the Biletnikoff, didn't end up winning it, but one of the best players in college football. Not getting it once, sure. Second time, you have to run the ball. You have to just pound it down the middle with Indiana. They didn't do it. And instead, their decision was throw it to a guy because I think going into the week had under 10 catches on the season. If you're going to do it, at least throw it to Tate, Claire, or Smith. Don't throw it to a guy who hasn't done anything all year.
I guess they were really trying to catch the Hoosiers off guard in any way that they could. In a big way was the double reverse pass, the trickery that really was looking like a walk-in touchdown for the Buckeyes. And if it weren't for a Mikal Kamara penalty, that probably would have. Kamara just barreled himself into the blockers. Yes, it was a 15-yard penalty, but that was the last first down Ohio State would get.
Yeah, the Kamara battering ram. He just threw himself at the couple blockers that Ohio State had and tripped everybody up. It's one of those plays where it happens, and first thought is like, wow, what a defensive play. Then you realize, wait, that's a penalty. Clearly, you can't do that.
Well, that's still an incredible defensive play.
But it is still an incredible defensive play. because it's heads up and because it would have been a touchdown. Even if he went full barrel into the couple of blockers right in front of him and got to those guys, there's still at least one blocker going down the field. And then it's on Indiana safety to really, book it, try to get there, try to beat the defender and get to the ball carrier. I 100% agree. It's an incredible heads up play. And one of those where the penalty, the penalty is what you have to do to
Doesn't
save
matter.
the touchdown.
Penalty. We'll take a penalty. Penalty isn't going to give you a touchdown. That is an incredible mixture of not only a heads up smart play, but guts too. You're going into the legs of 3 defensive linemen. And not only, I think he was probably a little surprised it worked. He was like, screw it, I'm going to try this. And I think when the play ended up going down and he saw the penalty, he was probably,
all right, there we go.
All right, we'll
go.
Yeah. We'll take it.
And the biggest thing that ended on this drive is kind of the reason Indiana won the game in a sense. Jaden Fielding, a 27-yard field goal. Ohio State opts to tie it up. 27 yards out, right hash for Jaden Fielding, who's talking some smack to Indiana fans, and wide left. You talk about hooking field goals and some nerves on some short shots. That's almost a PAT.
Yeah, that's one of those where, the nerves come in for every field goal, every extra point maybe, but from that close, that feels like a real tactical error where obviously he was trying to kind of hit that low one because he's on the right hash. You got to pull it a little bit to get it online. He was going for that low pull, but the football just kind of came off sideways.
Yep.
It was clearly a mishit. And, decent snap, decent hold. It was in position for him to get a good boot on it. To hit a ball that wrong, it feels like nerves 100% came into play.
And that's how he hit his first field goal earlier in the game. Real short one, and it snaps back.
Yeah.
But, if we're going to call Nico's a 5-foot miss putt, that's a 3.5, 3.25 miss putt.
I've missed those too.
But
so have we all.
in the waning moments of this game, 2.5 minutes, Indiana had the ball. Back-to-back run plays. It's 3rd and 6. And Fernando Mendoza makes the call to go to the roommate again. It's Charlie Becker who makes the play. And coming up, there are the back-to-back runs here. And then that was just blown up again by Caden Curry. Fernando Mendoza.
Best player on the field.
That was unbelievable what Curry did. But here's the 3rd and 6. Mendoza with time and finds Charlie B., the kid from Nashville. What a game he had. Prior to a Hail Mary that Jeremiah Smith had, Charlie Becker was going to lead this game in receiving yards. What a moment, and that was really the icer.
Yeah, it was. It was a great throw. It was in the spot where only he could get to it, but then also the concentration midair to go to his left shoulder and pull down that football. That is just an unbelievable grab, twisting midair. And again, Charlie Becker, to me, one of those guys where he's not the biggest guy on the field. He's not going to be the fastest, but he's just a football player. He's one of those guys, this might be a wild comparison, but stick with me. Kind of reminds me of Puka Nacua, one of those guys that can just kind of outball you. He might not have the biggest stature or the best speed, but he can make an incredible catch when he needs to, and he's got those football skills to really make it count.
Making plays. And that's your guy.
That's very simple. You call that a wheelbarrow play. And, Heisman, welcome to the Heisman, Fernando Mendoza, the Cheese Coney Club, the Big Ten Championship, whatever you want to call it. That's how you go win a football game. Coach Signetti, that's a wheelbarrow play.
The Hoosiers Big Ten champions. So Kurt Signetti got to raise the trophy. Man, he was fired up. You kind of saw when he was walking out to Ryan Day, he was holding off a smile before their handshake. Fernando Mendoza was trying to take the mic from Joel Klatt. They sang the song on the field. A ton of special moments right there. And Fernando Mendoza, the MVP of the Big Ten Championship. Thomas, I know you voted for Charlie Becker as a media member. But something that did happen during the celebration, something that should be talked about. It is some big news for this team. It's the guy who leads the entire nation in tackles for loss. He had a sack on Julian Sain in this game. Stephen Daly got hurt during the celebration. It wasn't anything crazy. He was trying to high-five his family and he fans, and there it is. His knee just buckles, and he's out for the season. That is a huge blow.
Yeah, it's a huge loss. And his numbers are especially shocking when you consider the fact that he really didn't play the first couple weeks of the season. It was Kellen Wyatt who was doing all the hard work down there on the line, and then Stephen Daly comes in and still finds a way to get all these tackles for loss. It's truly a big blow to the Indiana defense, and just one of those freak accidents. There's no way to explain it. it's just one of those, well, you don't want the guy to not celebrate, not enjoy the moment as a player on the team who worked his butt off to get to this position. Anyone in the country, no matter the situation, would want to celebrate like that. Just one of those scenarios where it's like, man, what happened? And now this Indiana team has to regroup.
And it wasn't like he was backflipping or sprinting. He was just doing a little hop. I guess it's just a big guy jumping. I'm not sure. I'm no doctor, but it really, that is a tough blow considering the impact he's made this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's gutting for Daly. It's gutting for his teammates and for the defense entirely. But even just beyond a football sense, I mean, this is a young man who didn't win a football game last season, guys. And then to come in here, go undefeated, just be excited to share that moment with his family, his teammates. It's gutting for him. And, that's just unfortunate to see.
Would never wish that onto any athlete, especially one that just won a Big Ten championship. That really is a huge blow. But before we wrap up, we're going to preview the CFP and, more importantly, the matchup that Indiana's eyeing, the Oklahoma versus Alabama game. We're going to step aside for just a few brief moments, talk about the Oklahoma-Alabama game, and then get out of here.
Hoosier Nation, want a smarter take on IU sports? Then check out Crimson Cast, your go-to podcast for Indiana football, basketball, and beyond. Hosts Galen Clavio and Scott Caulfield bring you game previews, instant reactions, history, and context to make Indiana sports come alive. From the biggest moments on the field to the storylines shaping the future, Crimson Cast keeps you informed and connected. And after years of saying bring back the Bison, IU actually did it. So if IU listens to Crimson Cast, maybe you should too. Just search Crimson Cast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube.
It's playoff week, which is crazy, it's scary, it's fun, and it's exciting. I'm just trying to throw in really all the adjectives I know. First game of the playoffs is this Friday, Alabama versus Oklahoma in Norman, two teams that have played each other this season. SEC showdown. Oklahoma is back in the playoffs for the first time in quite a while. Alabama is back for the first time under Kalen DeBoer. These are two head coaches that have playoff experience. Venables, when he was the DC over at Clemson, he was on some of the best teams in college football history in the playoff era. And then Kalen DeBoer, just 2 seasons ago, was the head coach of the Washington Huskies, who went toe-to-toe with the 15-0 Michigan Wolverines in their last natty, in the last season of the 4-team playoff. Just, Thomas, when you first look at these two teams, SEC ball, both have their strengths and weaknesses. John Mateer has some flair right there. So does Ty Simpson as the quarterback battle. But, man, this Oklahoma defensive line, it might be better than Indiana's when you look at it from a stat standpoint.
Yeah, this defense for Oklahoma is incredible. And I think the first thing that we have to remember about this matchup is just a couple of weeks ago, Oklahoma went to T-Town, took down Bama, signed up for 60, and put some really impressive stuff on film. John Mateer looked better in that game than he had.
I like the fact that they're going really up-tempo now.
Mateer, downfield wide open. It's room service. Satania.
First 4 games. Since then, in 7 games, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. This offense just hasn't had much life. They're going to have to ride on this defense.
They're the 77th ranked scoring offense in all the land, but the 7th ranked scoring defense in FBS. This is a very stout defense. 115 tackles for loss, which is by far the first in the entire nation. And they haven't even played a 13th game yet. That is unbelievable. They're averaging almost 10 per game getting in the backfield like that. Graham, this is an Oklahoma defense that's very good, but this is an Alabama offense. And it's the Alabama culture that once it's the playoffs, it's still that brand.
That's exactly right. I mean, blue blood football, right? Alabama. I think when a lot of people think of college football, you think of Alabama. That's been the team in the playoffs for however many years. But it's a new era of Alabama football. Yeah. Things look much different. And that team looked really bad, frankly, against Georgia. Yes, the CFP committee said that they weren't going to take into account the championship results, but I think we have to when talking about it, because that was truly an ugly game. Ty Simpson, around 50% completion percentage. The rushing attack with the sacks included, -3 yards. Ty Simpson got sacked for 28 yards. It was just an unbelievable showing from Georgia, and this is a Georgia team that Alabama beat earlier in the season. So don't know if that's Georgia peaking at the right time, Alabama not peaking at the wrong time. You know, it could be a mix of a couple different things, but you got to think, talking about film, there's a lot of bad stuff on film right now for Alabama, and Oklahoma having already beat the Crimson Tide might have a really good game plan going into this weekend.
Well, it seemed like Alabama almost peaked too early. Yes, they lost very early in the season to Florida State, which at the time didn't look like too bad of a loss, and Florida State kind of had the wheels fall off a little bit. And then they got really hot. We're looking like kind of the odds-on favorite to win the SEC championship game. Lose to Texas, and then they got smacked by Georgia. And then that Auburn, the Iron Bowl. I know rivalry game. Auburn always plays well when they're at home. They did not look good in that game either. And that was not a very good Auburn team. That was an Auburn team that just couldn't even score the ball. And Alabama kind of struggled with them. They look beaten down. And it's interesting. This is a much-needed break for Alabama, just as much as for every team. Alabama really needs some time off because they just look worn down.
Yeah, I left that Iron Bowl actually really impressed with Ty Simpson in a way. He got hit a lot. He just kind of did everything for him in a sense. The run game wasn't really working. He got Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams involved. I left that game saying, is he the best quarterback in the nation? No, but is he tough? And is he one of the few guys I want to have the ball from my team with a couple minutes to go in the game? Yeah. So, watch out for Ty Simpson in this game. He's going to have to scramble and use his legs a lot against his D-line, though.
Always a huge fan of the home playoff games. Norman is going to be rocking. That is a place that is kind of dying for some really quality football again. They've been in the playoffs times before, but they've never won a playoff game. And they're eyeing their first one.
It's going to be going early in Norman.
Oh, Norman's going to have a lot of fun this Friday. But before we head out, instead of doing score predictions, because obviously Indiana doesn't play quite yet, they play out in Pasadena for the Rose Bowl as the #1 overall seed. We got our bracket predictions, and it's Thomas and Graham have theirs. So, Graham, I'll let your bracket be shown first, and you kind of walk us through your decision-making of who is taking home the coveted national championship.
All right. I like setting the tone. I like going first.
Tone, Graham.
I got Oregon beating JMU. I've got Bama going into Norman and getting that win. And then I've got Miami beating A&M as well. I think, A&M had a great season, but like we're talking about with Alabama, the wheels kind of started to fall off. Nearly lost to South Carolina and a very, very close game. Had an unbelievable comeback, but then lose that last game of the season. I like Tulane just for the strict fact that a lot has happened at Ole Miss in the past couple of months or weeks. And I don't know. Ole Miss just gives me interesting vibes. Don't know if I trust that team. So I've got Tulane going through. And then Georgia, Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas Tech winning. I got Texas Tech beating Indiana. I feel like when you get down to those four teams of Tech, Georgia, Ohio State, and Indiana, at that point, it feels like any of those teams could really beat each other on any given day. It's just which team is going to show up and give its best form on that day. The Texas Tech defense is impressive, man. That defense is impressive. I think the Indiana offense is better than the Texas Tech offense, but I think the Texas Tech defense is better than the Indiana defense. So it's a question of which side that's not as good is going to show up better. I just went with Texas Tech in this form of my bracket, then Ohio State beating Georgia, and the Buckeyes winning the national championship back-to-back.
I mean, honestly, Tech is a Baron Morton injury away from probably being the 3 seed and undefeated and, one of 2 undefeated teams in all.
Probably, honestly, maybe the 2 seed.
Potentially, potentially the 2 seed. So they're a good team. They've been beating the crap out of everyone in the Big 12. It's going to be fun. They're probably going to have to play Oregon. No, not saying JMU is no easy contest right there, but Autzen is a tough place to play. The only team that goes into Autzen and wins is Indiana in recent history. But Thomas, let's check out your bracket.
Yeah, well, Joe, when I sent our awesome producer Emily my picks, I was it took a little bit of understanding from her telling me that SMU actually wasn't playing in the playoff. So Graham kind of confused me last week. I thought they had a chance to make it. They didn't. I'm also just kidding. I have Oregon taking care of JMU. Don't think that's going to be much of a contest.
Shouting out Graham there.
Crazy shot.
I think Mateer in the defensive line for Oklahoma is just going to be too much for an Alabama team that hasn't impressed me much this season. Up top, I have Ole Miss winning. I think this is the most on fire, not on fire, but kind of lit up team right now after Lane Kiffin left earlier in this season. So I think Ole Miss wins that game. And then the bottom, I have A&M. Like I said, A&M was undefeated just a couple of weeks ago. A&M is dangerous. I actually almost thought about having A&M take down Ohio State, but the Buckeyes are just too strong. We saw it last week. Ole Miss, I think they are going to just be so kind of angry that Lane left him. They still have Trinidad Chambliss. They still have Lacey, their running back. And I have not been impressed with Georgia. I understand the Texas game. That's the only game all season that I've looked at Georgia and said that's a really good team. Other than that, I just don't think they've done enough in the first half. Now, Oregon, Texas Tech, really good defenses, but I just think Oregon has a better offense. Indiana, Oklahoma, both very good defenses. Oklahoma's offense just won't have a pulse against this Hoosier defense. Indiana gets it done once again against Oregon. You don't get the home field advantage this time either. I think Indiana beats the Ducks. Ohio State takes down Ole Miss's kind of glory run here, and then a rematch of the Big Ten title. And I think Indiana has better coordinators. I think they're going to adjust better. I don't think Brian Hartline's mind is going to be completely in this game, and I think Indiana wins it.
A lot of interesting games going on. I'm kind of interested because you had Tulane winning. You got Ole Miss on a little miracle Cinderella run, you could say, in a way, going into the semis right there. I still think Ole Miss, especially at home, they are going to be fired up. I mean, Norman's going to be fired, but Oxford is going to be buzzing, probably starting right now. They are itching to be back at home. They're itching to be so loud for Golding and everything that has happened.
Oxford is going to be nuts.
Yeah, that might be the best
loud.
scene of the home
might be
games.
Dangerous. It is going to be nuts.
The thing is that is a rematch. Those two teams played very early in the season. Tulane kind of got beaten.
Did you
down
did you check that
earlier?
I did.
And you like Tulane. Even John Strumble called this team not a top 25 team earlier this season.
The way that I see it, one of two things can happen when a head coach leaves like this. Either the team's fired up, they're ready to go,
or
wheels fall off, dude. One of two ways. I'm not saying it's going to be the wheels fall off.
You look really comfy.
I'm saying it could very likely happen. As much as they could be up showing ready to rock, the wheels could fall off.
It's going to be fun. And you're a Tech believer right there.
Yeah.
And you got Tech losing after their bye. I don't think all four bye teams are winning. I mean, we saw last year, all four lost. I think the bye teams are better this year, but one is bound to slip up. That's so much time off. It is a lot of time to not be playing football.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of danger for it for Indiana. Had some guys go to New York this weekend, traveling, a lot of media stuff. There's a lot of attention on this team, attention that they've never had before. Coach Signetti said in his post-game press conference, though, I have 3.5 weeks to get these guys humble and hungry. Going to need to do so.
In New York, Kurt Signetti went just briefly to talk to the media, and all the players are mobbing Fernando, and he points at them and says, "You have until Tuesday to celebrate." And then Carter Smith yells back and says, "Monday, coach." This team's ready. This team is fired up. They know what's at stake. They're heading to Pasadena, California for the Rose Bowl. Any Indiana fan throughout the past 70, 80 years probably doesn't even know what to think right now, saying Indiana is the favorite in the Rose Bowl, the number 1 seed in the Rose Bowl, playing the winner of Alabama and Oklahoma, 2 blue blood programs in the history of college football, and Indiana is going to be favored in that game. That is kind of crazy to think about through the history of college football. That's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to be out there in some California sun right around New Year's time, but that is going to wrap up this episode of Crimson Kickoff, potentially our last on-site one here at the Bo McMillan Suite here at Merchants Bank Field at Memorial Stadium. It's been honestly so much fun being able to be at the stadium, to talk about the team, to talk about an undefeated team. It's an honor. I mean, who would have thought 13-0? I don't think any of us predicted at the start of the year 13-0, or at least 12-0.
No.
It was 10-2.
You guys had them losing to Oregon.
Yeah. I think we both had them losing to Oregon and Penn State. I think a lot of people did. Looking at the beginning of the year, that schedule, going to Autzen, going to Beaver Stadium, those are two of the hardest places to play, not just in the Big Ten, but in college football. And, this team continues to just make history.
Yeah. Well, this has been quite the blast. Honestly, one of the coolest things to be a part of, to talk about week by week. It couldn't have happened without the two people next to me, and it definitely couldn't have happened with everybody behind the scenes, cutting highlights, B-roll, whatever it might be, creating different stories about everything happened in Bloomington around the team that wasn't just the day-to-day of IU football. And with that being said, for Thomas Crow, for Graham Nash, and our entire production crew, I'm Joe Cronin saying so long. We'll probably be virtual for our next show, but those Hoosiers, they're playing the winner of Alabama and Oklahoma on January 1st.
Cooper got open and caught it. Touchdown, Indiana.
Going up the middle is Omar Cooper, and he'll walk into the end zone.
Complete at the 47. Surratt with no one to beat.